was the era of watching a main event on a movie screen, with the roars of the crowd made up for the bad quality of the flickering black and white images. It was a unique experience in sports history, now gone the way of the drive-in movie. Like the drive-in, the closed-circuit main event in boxing tells part of our story as Americans in a small way. I realized for me it was an untold story about a simple time in our family, and it started with a guy named Cassius Clay.
Addicted to win the championship at the age of 21. I'm out to break Floyd Patterson's record. And by this being my 20th birthday today, January the 17th, that leaves me exactly 1 year to reach my goal in order to win this championship. So whoever stands in my path at that time, either Liston or Patterson, one of them will fall.
I remember when he came on the boxing scene in 1962, like an invader that was going to take over the world. This was no colored guy. He was more like an avenging angel that wore boxing gloves and used them like an artist uses a paintbrush to wage his art. He could control the media and mock the world, defying us in our suburban bliss and cursing our wars against humanity.
My last 3 fights, I predicted a 4-round knockout. I knocked out Sonny Banks in 4 rounds. I knocked out Don Juan in 4 rounds. And I just annihilated George Logan in 4 rounds. And most people think because I can predict a fight like this and make it come true, they think that I am becoming overconfident. But I will never be so overconfident until it would interfere with my training program. I'm gunning for Floyd Patterson and Sonny Liston. And if they get in my way, I will annihilate them also.
Yeah, you come on, lady.
I hated boxing as a kid. It started for me with going to a strange place called the boxing gym, where my father, an Army light heavyweight who broke ranks with the fight game in his prime, he still loved boxing and would at times try to train young boys to be fighters. It was tedious for me. I would much rather be at an amusement park or at the movies. They called themselves fighters, and they moved in funny ways, I thought, and always seemed friendly. I didn't understand why grown men went through this odd ritual, moving, dancing, slipping, weaving. Why didn't they just clobber the guy? And why did my father have all these friends that used to fight each other? My dad, a Korean War veteran, had amazing stories of his plight as a soldier and as a fighter. He would always talk of the Garden, the Mecca of boxing, and of great men like Archie Moore, Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, and his peers, Floyd Patterson and Doug Jones, to name a few. Often we'd walk with our dad through Harlem in the early 60s. He'd meet a guy on the street, and he'd start greeting and shaking hands like old school buddies. He'd say to my brother and I with great enthusiasm, "Do you know who this is? This is the great Sandy Sadler, who fought Wooly Pep at the Garden for the title." Amazing, I thought, how that guy that looked like a casual street peer could actually be someone. They just looked like nice guys that were searching for something, never seeming to escape the background of the Harlem streets. Like veterans that returned from the war with their badge of courage, their names having survived great battles. All they had were their memories.
Well, my resolutions are to become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. And that's nothing new to my fans. They all know that I will be the next heavyweight champion.
Cassius Clay? Did you ever hear a name like that? A perfect cover, an oddity. seemingly sent to punish the long-suffering Negro, just when integration was becoming accepted. Cassius Clay proceeded to beat all of my father's friends and idols. Archie Moore, the longtime great light heavyweight boxing champion, was one of our family idols. Moore represented boxing of the 50s. As a black man, he was righteous and dignified. A perfect role model for the day and any day.
Well, I realize that Archie's a great fighter. Archie is a great old fighter.
Surely the gods would not stand for him to be humiliated by such a show-off. My father had tickets to the closed-circuit showing, a strange movie of the fight on a big screen, which I could hardly imagine. I was too young and too scared to go, but my brother embraced it. He loved sports and Archie Moore because he was my dad's idol. Cassius Clay predicted Archie Moore would fall in the 4th round. And as if following a script, old Archie crumbled in the 4th round, humiliated by this obscene magician of boxing perfection. The fellow Clay then fought family friend Doug Jones. My father knew Jones well and trained him before the fight at the old Madison Square Garden.
During the past few weeks, you've been centering your interest around these squabbles you've been having with Sonny Liston down here. You've got to fight Doug Jones. Don't you think it's about time you started concentrating on this boy? He's a pretty good fighter.
No, I'm not concentrating on Doug Jones. He's nothing but a bum. Sonny Liston is the man I want. I'm not thinking about Doug Jones. Jones will fall in 6, and I might cut it to 3.
You know what?
The night of the fight, Jones landed a lucky right hand in the 2nd round that had Clay hurt. Jones took the fight to Clay, but didn't have enough talent to pull off the upset. However, he made Clay's prediction fail by going the distance. He was our hero. But in spite of the failed prediction, Cassius Clay's legend grew like brush fire, and it was clear he would redefine boxing.